U.S. to ease sanctions on Venezuelan oil for freer presidential election. Interesting, these three stories. I'll combine them together and I'll give it to Tom. Very interesting here. The Biden administration and Venezuela, this is from WAPO, Washington Post. The Biden administration and Venezuelan President Maduro's government have reached a breakthrough deal in which the U.S. will ease sanctions on Venezuelan oil industry in exchange for commitment from the authoritarian regime to hold a competitive, internationally monitored presidential election in 2024. The relief and sanctions will be announced once an agreement is signed, including commitments by the Venezuelan government to ensure a fair vote. Under the agreement, Maduro has agreed to process for lifting bans on opposition candidates running in its elections. It also includes commitments to Maduro's government to accept international electoral observations and open media access for elections. Actually, very, very interesting. Let me continue with the other two stories. ExxonMobil buying Pioneer Natural Resources for nearly $60 billion in its biggest deal in decades. This is a Forbes story, okay? This is a Forbes story. In this story, you see Exxon set to acquire Pioneer Natural Resources, a $60 billion all-stock deal, marking the largest deal for Exxon since its merger with Mobil in late 1990s. The acquisition will value Pioneer at $253 a share, with Pioneer shareholders receiving approximately 2.32 shares of ExxonMobil for each share they own. The acquisition will give ExxonMobil Pioneer share 850,000 net acres in the Permian Basin in West Texas, effectively doubling its output in the region, which accounted for 18% of all natural gas. And last but not least, lithium discovery in U.S. volcano could be the biggest deposit ever found. A significant lithium deposit has been identified in a volcanic crater along the Nevada-Oregon border, potentially containing between 20 to 40 million tons of lithium metal, which surpasses previous deposits found in Bolivia. The discovery carries substantial global implications affecting lithium prices, supply chain security, and geopolitical dynamics in the lithium market. Mining operations are projected to commence in 2026, aiming to extract lithium from the claystone in an energy-efficient and low-acid consumption manner. Tom, why do these stories matter to the average American?
We've been talking about the Middle East, and the Middle East is where there's a lot of energy, and the U.S. has been a net natural gas exporter. This increases our independence and increases our ability to stand on the world stage and to support Canada and other people with energy needs. So take a look. Venezuela. Venezuela is right across the Gulf from Galveston and Houston, Texas, where we have giant refineries down there. And by the way, so Venezuela, it's sort of comical. Hey, if you promise to be good tonight, I'll give you ice cream. Okay, if you promise to have fair and open elections in Venezuela and stop knocking off opposition candidates, tell you what, I'll take off the sanctions on your Venezuelan oil. Remember, Venezuela is a member of? Everyone? OPEC. Yep. Yes. They're the redheaded stepchild way across the Atlantic Ocean. And so that brings Venezuelan oil here so that we can take advantage of that. Exxon buys up this so that they could do, and you've heard it before, you hear when the conservative candidates say it, what should our energy policy be? Drill, baby, drill. Well, guess what? Exxon just found more places to drill, baby, drill, because West Texas, WTI, when you see in the Wall Street Journal, the average price for light sweet crude, Saudi Arabia, and for WTI crude, WTI is West Texas Intermediate, and the Permian Basin is this giant basin over there in Midland, Odessa, Texas, where we have all this crude. So this is Exxon getting access to even more crude. Why is this important? Well, to get the prices for gas artificially down about a year ago, Joe Biden drained what's called the SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That's where we keep oil, that if there's a major calamity, maybe it's weather, maybe it's a hurricane that takes out Galveston, you don't know what it could be, but that was supposed to be the place that we dip to it in a time of emergency. Instead, what he did, he was trying to drop the price of gas artificially on the short-term basis. And people said, you shouldn't be doing this. And now you have to refill it. So this is all part of further further American energy independence and America as an energy power. The globalists don't want us to be an energy power. They want us to be dependent. That's why the Greens line up with the globalists to say, oh, don't drill, no pipelines, and don't go into ANWR. ANWR basically is drilling in Alaska where there's a ton of oil, ladies and gentlemen. So this is what this is all about.
Whose victory is this?
This is a victory for United States energy independence.
That's great.
And
finally.
And Biden is doing what Trump was doing with Venezuela. Why shouldn't they be allowed to take their oil over to us? Why don't we buy it?
What I'm telling you is all signs of every policy that was working under Trump, Biden has finally realized. And if you want to get reelected, you got to use those policies because that's exactly what's important to America. Wall, oil independence. You're seeing all these stories secure. Well, they're not doing the border side. But
No.
By the way, the lithium discovery is an unexpected good news for the American.
that's fantastic news.
Thank
Because
God.
remember,
How does Musk feel
when
about
you-
that? How does Musk feel about that?
He's taken an exceptionally long shower this
Is he
morning.
launching a missile?
He needed a big cold shower because he's really happy about this because it means we don't have to rely over time as this discovery becomes mined and available for sale. It means you don't have to rely on China, Chile, or very expensive lithium extraction from seawater to get this heavy mineral that you need to make batteries for electric vehicles. And there's a lot more to it. Those batteries that you see Tesla cells that go on the wall of garages that could basically power the house for a day and a half, that's a big part of it too. All about less reliance globally, and this is exactly the stuff that Trump would have been on top of.
Quick anecdote for you, Tom, because great explanation. I appreciate that. You said, how does this affect America? Well, I'll tell you how this affects my life and affects our lives here in South Florida. So you may be familiar that in the 1980s and even prior to that, there was the Cuban entrance into Miami. Basically, Cubans helped build Miami along with a lot of local Jewish community. And you know, there's something called Little Havana and Calle Ocho, and there's a major Cuban presence in Miami.
BB Rebozo.
There you go. So slowly but surely, Little Havana and everything that's going on has sort of been shifting towards what I call Little Caracas, because that's the capital of Venezuela. Venezuelans are legally speaking, pouring into Miami and basically setting up shop in Miami and saying, we ain't going back to frickin' Venezuela. So that's great that there's diplomatic relations kind of going on, the oil, the sanctions, everything going on right there. But here's the one thing they should know. When the Cubans first came here, they were anti-communist, anti-socialist, anti-Fidel Castro, and they voted with the Republican Party, with Reagan, and
Nixon was their
socially
hero.
shored up that block. What's happening right now, I know we talk about the open borders and sort of the Latin American countries and Mexico pouring in and basically under the democratic guise of remember who let you in. Don't forget these people who are basically leaving the Maduro regime via Chavez regime will definitely be remembering the socialist communist lifestyle and remember that when they vote for most likely Republicans in the upcoming election, assuming they're allowed to vote.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.